That night my daughter Lily asked me, "Mommy, why do Grandma and Grandpa only come when they want money?" This question changed everything, and we ended up giving them a real invoice for what they owed us. I'm Rachel Morgan, 32 years old, and last month my husband Kevin died of a sudden heart attack. The shock still hasn't worn off. When I called my parents sobbing uncontrollably, my mother said, "We're celebrating Sophia's birthday right now. Can this wait until tomorrow?" My 8-year-old daughter Lily and I sat alone that night, holding each other as our world collapsed. I never imagined my family would abandon us in our darkest hour, but what they did next was even worse. If you've ever felt betrayed by family when you needed them most, please let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to join others who understand this pain. Kevin and I met during our sophomore year at Northwestern University. I was struggling through economics, and he was the charming teaching assistant who stayed after class to help me understand depreciation curves. His patience was the first thing I fell in love with, followed quickly by his infectious laugh and the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. We dated through college, and he proposed on graduation day, hiding the ring in my diploma case. We married young at 23, ignoring warnings from friends who said we should experience life before settling down. But Kevin was my life. He was the person I wanted to experience everything with. After finishing his MBA, Kevin landed a job at a prestigious financial advisory firm in Chicago. He worked his way up quickly, impressing clients with his honest approach and genuine care for their financial well-being. He wasn't just good with numbers, he was good with people. That combination made him exceptional at his job. We spent 5 wonderful years as a couple before deciding to try for a baby. What we thought would be an easy journey turned into 3 years of heartbreak. 2 miscarriages, countless doctor appointments, and 1 failed round of IVF later. We were emotionally exhausted and financially drained. We started discussing adoption when I unexpectedly became pregnant with Lily. The pregnancy was difficult. I was on bed rest for the final 2 months, and Kevin worked from home to take care of me. He'd bring me breakfast in bed, massage my swollen feet, and read pregnancy books aloud to both me and our unborn daughter. When Lily finally arrived, Kevin cried harder than I did, holding her tiny body against his chest like she was made of glass. For 8 beautiful years, we were the family I'd always dreamed of having. Kevin coached Lily's soccer team despite knowing nothing about soccer. He learned alongside her, watching YouTube tutorials at night after she went to bed. He never missed a school event or a doctor's appointment. His calendar was filled with reminders about Lily's activities, color-coded by importance. There were warning signs about his health that we both ignored. Occasional chest pains he attributed to stress. Shortness of breath he blamed on being out of shape. The doctor said his slightly elevated blood pressure was normal for a man approaching 40 with a high-pressure job. Take some aspirin, exercise more, cut back on sodium, standard advice we took too casually. The morning it happened started like any other Tuesday. Kevin made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs while I packed Lily's lunch. He kissed us both goodbye, promised to be home early for Lily's school art show, and headed to work. His last words to me were, "Don't forget to pick up more maple syrup, the real stuff, not that corn syrup garbage." Such a mundane final conversation. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was Amanda, Kevin's assistant, her voice shaking so badly I could barely understand her. "Rachel, Kevin collapsed during a client meeting. The ambulance is here, they're taking him to Northwestern Memorial." I remember dropping my coffee mug. The sound of ceramic shattering on tile seems to echo in my memory. I called our neighbor Ellen to pick up Lily from school, then drove to the hospital breaking every speed limit. I prayed the entire way, bargaining with God in desperate whispers. But I was too late. Kevin was pronounced dead at 11:23 a.m., minutes before I arrived. "Massive heart attack," they said. Nothing could have been done, they assured me, as if that made it better somehow. Seeing Kevin's body was surreal. He looked like he was sleeping, except for the unnatural stillness of his chest. His skin was still warm when I touched his face. I kept expecting him to open his eyes, to smile and tell me this was all a terrible mistake. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. The funeral home needed decisions I wasn't prepared to make. Cremation or burial? What kind of service? Did he have a favorite suit? Questions that seemed impossible to answer when all I wanted to do was crawl into bed with my husband one last time. The hardest part was driving home, knowing I had to tell Lily that her father was never coming back. How do you explain death to an 8-year-old? How do you tell her that the daddy who made dinosaur pancakes that morning was gone forever? Telling Lily about her father was the most difficult moment of my life. When she got into my car after school, she immediately sensed something was wrong. "Where's Daddy? He promised to come to my art show tonight," she said, her backpack clutched in her small hands. I pulled over to the side of the road because I couldn't focus on driving. Turning to face her, I took her hands in mine. "Lily, something very sad happened today. Daddy got very sick at work and his heart stopped working." Her face scrunched in confusion. "Can't the doctors fix it?" The innocent hope in her question broke something inside me. "No, sweetie. When someone's heart stops working completely, the doctors can't fix it. Daddy died today." She stared at me for what felt like an eternity, her blue eyes, so much like Kevin's, processing this incomprehensible information. Then she asked, "Does that mean Daddy isn't coming home ever?" When I nodded, unable to speak through my tears, she let out a wail that didn't sound human. It was primal, the pure sound of a child's heart breaking. She threw herself into my arms, her small body shaking with sobs. "I want Daddy. Please, I want my Daddy." There was nothing I could do but hold her and cry with her, parked on the side of the road as life continued all around us, oblivious to our shattered world. That evening, after I'd finally gotten Lily to sleep in my bed clutching Kevin's unwashed t-shirt for comfort, the full weight of my loss hit me. I sat on the bathroom floor, door closed so Lily wouldn't hear, and broke down completely. The physical pain of grief was overwhelming, like being repeatedly punched in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I needed my mom and dad. With shaking hands, I called my parents. They'd been married for 40 years, had weathered losses together. Surely they would know what to say, how to help me through this impossible time. My mother answered on the 5th ring. The sound of laughter and music in the background was immediate. "Rachel, can I call you back? We're in the middle of Sophia's birthday dinner." "Mom," I choked out, barely able to form words through my sobs. "Kevin died this morning. He had a heart attack at work. He's gone." There was a pause, and I heard her cover the phone and say something to someone else. When she returned, her voice was slightly more somber but still distracted. "Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Are you sure? Maybe there's been a mistake." "I saw his body, Mom. There's no mistake." The fact that I had to convince my own mother that my husband was actually dead felt like another trauma on top of everything else. "Well, this is quite a shock, but sweetie, we're in the middle of Sophia's 40th birthday celebration. Everyone's here, we've got the caterers. Can you manage tonight and we'll come by tomorrow when things settle down?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My sister's birthday party took precedence over her son-in-law's death, over her daughter and granddaughter's acute grief. My father got on the phone then. "Rachel, this is awful news. Was Kevin's life insurance policy up to date? You know, you should call the company first thing tomorrow." Not "I'm coming right over." Not "what can we do to help?" But a question about life insurance while my husband's body was barely cold. "I can't believe this is your response," I said, my voice hollow. "My husband just died. Lily lost her father, and you're at a party." "Now Rachel," my father said in that condescending tone he'd used throughout my childhood, "Sophia has been planning this milestone birthday for months. Everyone took time off work to be here. We can't just walk out. Be reasonable." Reasonable. As if grief followed any rules of reason. "Forget I called," I said and hung up. Within minutes, my phone was flooded with text messages from friends who had somehow heard the news. Kevin's college roommate Brian, my colleague Jennifer, even my old high school friend Taylor who I hadn't spoken to in years, all offering condolences, asking what they could do to help. Strangers showed more compassion than my own family. My neighbor Ellen came over with a casserole and sat with me at the kitchen table as I tried to make a list of people to notify. She offered to stay the night, but I declined. I needed to be alone with Lily, to start figuring out how we would navigate this new, terrifying reality without Kevin. That first night was endless. Lily had nightmares and kept waking up calling for her daddy. I lay beside her, stroking her hair and telling her stories about Kevin, about how much he loved her, about how brave he thought she was. Eventually she fell into an exhausted sleep, but I remained awake, staring at the ceiling, the absence of Kevin's warmth beside me an unbearable void. Morning came, and with it the crushing realization that this wasn't a nightmare I could wake from. This was our life now, a life without Kevin, a life where my own parents couldn't be bothered to show up when I needed them most. Kevin's funeral was scheduled for Saturday, 4 days after his death. Those days passed in a fog of arrangements, paperwork, and trying to comfort Lily while barely holding myself together. My parents called once, briefly, to ask what time the service started and if they should wear black or if it was a celebration of life with colorful attire. They didn't offer to help with arrangements or ask how Lily was coping. The day of the funeral dawned bright and sunny, cruelly beautiful for such a dark occasion. Lily insisted on wearing a blue dress because Daddy always said I look like a princess in blue. I helped her with her hair, weaving a small braid along her temple the way Kevin used to do on special occasions. We arrived at the funeral home an hour early to greet people. Kevin's colleagues from the financial firm came first, somber in their dark suits, many of them openly crying. They had lost not just a co-worker but a friend. They each took time with Lily, sharing small stories about her father that she might treasure later. My parents and Sophia were supposed to arrive early too, but they texted 20 minutes before the service was scheduled to begin, saying they were running late due to traffic. They finally walked in as people were being seated, making a small commotion as they found places in the front row that I had reserved for family. My mother hugged me briefly, her perfume overwhelming. The traffic was terrible, and Sophia had a hard time finding something appropriate to wear on such short notice. Short notice. As if Kevin's death were an inconvenient dinner party. Throughout the service, I was acutely aware of Sophia checking her phone, my father glancing at his watch, my mother dabbing at dry eyes for show. Meanwhile, Kevin's colleagues and our friends were genuinely distraught, their grief palpable and real, in contrast to my family's detachment. Kevin's brother Marcus showed true devastation. He had flown in from Japan where he taught English, arriving just hours before the service. He looked exhausted and hollow-eyed, having clearly not slept on the 30-hour journey. He sat next to Lily, holding her hand throughout the service, their identical blue eyes filled with tears. When it came time for the eulogy, I wasn't sure I could do it. My legs felt like lead as I approached the podium. But then I looked at Lily, sitting there so brave and small in her blue dress, and found the strength somewhere. I spoke about Kevin's kindness, his integrity, his boundless love for his daughter. I spoke about his terrible jokes that made us groan and laugh at the same time, about his irrational hatred of cilantro and his passionate defense of proper maple syrup, about the way he always put family first. The bitter irony of those last words wasn't lost on me as I glanced at my parents, who were already gathering their things as I concluded, clearly eager to leave. During the reception at our house afterward, I overheard my father talking to my Uncle James near the drinks table. Kevin was doing very well at that firm, partner track. The life insurance alone must be substantial, not to mention the investments. Rachel will be set for life. It took everything in me not to confront him then and there, to demand how he could be thinking about money on the day we buried my husband. But I was too emotionally exhausted, too focused on making sure Lily was okay, to start a scene. My mother and Sophia barely helped with the reception, leaving most of the work to Kevin's colleagues' wives and my friends. They sat in the living room accepting condolences as if they were the primary mourners, while I moved through my own home like a ghost, mechanically thanking people for coming, accepting casseroles I would never eat. Meanwhile, Kevin's parents, though devastated by the loss of their only son, were models of genuine support. His mother Diana took over caring for Lily during the reception, making sure she ate and protecting her from well-meaning but overwhelming guests. His father Robert quietly organized the cleanup afterward, staying until the last guest had left. The contrast between Kevin's family and my own was stark and painful. As I watched my in-laws support each other in their grief while also finding strength to support me and Lily, I felt the absence of that same love from my own parents like a physical wound. As the house finally emptied of guests, my parents and Sophia made quick excuses about getting on the road before dark. They left with perfunctory hugs and promises to call soon. They didn't offer to stay and help clean up, didn't ask if Lily and I wanted company, didn't acknowledge that this would be our first night after officially saying goodbye to Kevin. Instead, Marcus and Kevin's parents stayed. Diana made up the guest room for Kevin's parents and the sofa for Marcus. "We'll be right here if you need anything during the night," Diana said, hugging me tightly. "You're not alone," Rachel. Remember that. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Lily's soft breathing beside me, I couldn't help feeling that in one crucial way, I was very much alone. The people who should have been my first line of support, my bedrock in times of crisis, had proven themselves unworthy of that role. 2 weeks after the funeral, I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to make sense of our health insurance situation when the doorbell rang. Lily was at school, her first week back since losing her father. The teachers were keeping a close eye on her and sending me regular updates, for which I was grateful. Through the peephole, I saw my parents standing on the porch, my father straightening his golf shirt, my mother checking her reflection in her compact mirror. I hadn't spoken to them since the funeral. They texted a few times with generic messages like thinking of you and hope you're doing okay, but there had been no real communication. I opened the door, not bothering to hide my surprise. I didn't know you were coming over. We thought we'd check in, see how you and Lily are doing, my mother said, brushing past me into the house. Is she at school? Good, we can talk openly. That should have been my first clue that this wasn't simply a supportive visit, but I was too emotionally drained to pick up on the warning signs. They settled themselves in the living room while I made coffee, falling into the hostess role automatically even though they should have been taking care of me. When I brought in the mugs, my father was examining the new sound system Kevin had installed just a month before his death. Nice setup, he commented, running his hand along the speakers. Kevin had good taste in electronics. He did, I agreed, the simple past tense still a knife twist in my heart. After a few minutes of awkward small talk about Lily's school and my mother's garden club, my father cleared his throat in the way he always did before discussing serious matters. Rachel, he began, setting his coffee mug down precisely on a coaster, we wanted to talk to you about your situation. His eyes, however, were fixed solely on me. My situation? Your financial situation, my mother clarified, exchanging glances with my father. Now that you're adjusting to life without Kevin. I stared at them, not comprehending at first what they were getting at. I'm not sure what you mean. Kevin left us well provided for. Yes, well, that's what we wanted to discuss, my father said, leaning forward. Your mother and I are getting older. Our retirement fund took a hit in the last market downturn, and with healthcare costs what they are. The implication hung in the air for a moment before I understood. Are you asking me for money? Now. My mother had the grace to look slightly embarrassed, but my father pressed on. We thought, given Kevin's position at the firm and his life insurance policy, that you might be in a position to help family. After all, we are your parents. The audacity of their request left me momentarily speechless. My husband wasn't even cold in his grave, and they were here with their hands out. How much are you thinking? I asked, my voice flat. My father, apparently missing my tone completely, brightened. Well, we were thinking something substantial would make sense. Perhaps 50% of the life insurance payout. That would secure our retirement and leave plenty for you and Lily. 50% of my widowed daughter's support to secure your retirement. I repeated the words slowly, making sure I understood. The daughter you couldn't be bothered to comfort when her husband died because you were at a birthday party. My mother flinched, but my father remained unperturbed. Now Rachel, there's no need to be emotional about this. It's just practical financial planning. And we did come to the funeral, my mother interjected weakly. How generous of you to attend my husband's funeral, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. We raised you, Rachel, my mother interjected. We paid for your college education. We helped with the down payment on your first house. I think we deserve some consideration now that you've come into money. Come into money. My husband died. I was shouting now, all the hurt and rage of the past 2 weeks boiling over. I didn't win the lottery. I lost the love of my life, the father of my child, and you're treating it like I hit some financial jackpot. My father's expression hardened. There's no need to be dramatic. Kevin knew the risks with his heart condition. He should have taken better care of himself. And now that he's gone, it's just practical to discuss how his assets should be distributed. Family should help family. In that moment, as my father casually blamed Kevin for his own death while simultaneously trying to profit from it, something snapped inside me. The grief that had left me passive and numb for 2 weeks suddenly crystallized into razor-sharp clarity. Get out, I said quietly. Rachel, be reasonable, my mother began. Get out of my house. I screamed, the force of my anger physically propelling me to my feet. How dare you come here asking for Kevin's money? How dare you blame him for dying? He was worth 100 of you, and you couldn't even be bothered to comfort your own daughter when she was breaking apart. My parents looked genuinely shocked at my outburst. They had never seen me truly angry before, having raised me to be accommodating, to avoid conflict, to be the good daughter. We're only asking for what's fair, my father said stiffly, standing up. We're your parents, Rachel. We deserve respect. Respect is earned, I replied, my voice shaking, and you've earned none. Now get out before Lily comes home and hears what kind of people her grandparents really are. They left in a huff, my mother making noises about me being ungrateful and my father muttering about reconsidering our relationship. I closed the door behind them and sank to the floor, trembling with rage and hurt. Later that afternoon, when I picked Lily up from school, she seemed more withdrawn than usual. In the car, she finally spoke up. Mommy, why were Grandma and Grandpa at our house today? My heart sank. Did you see them? She nodded. Mrs. Wilson let me go to the bathroom during math, and I saw their car from the school window. Did they bring something for us? The innocent question broke my heart anew. No, sweetie. They just came to talk to me about some grown-up things. Did they ask about Daddy's money? She asked, surprising me with her perception. What makes you say that? Lily looked down at her hands. I heard Grandpa at the funeral telling Uncle James that we would get lots of money because Daddy died. Is that true? That my 8-year-old daughter had overheard such a conversation made me physically ill. Lily, your daddy made sure we would be taken care of, yes. But money doesn't make up for not having him here with us. She nodded sagely. I would give all the money in the world to have Daddy back. Me too, baby, I whispered. Me too. That night, I called Marcus, who had returned to Japan but was planning to come back for an extended stay during his summer break to help us adjust. I told him about my parents' visit and their demand. Are you kidding me? He exploded. They want half of Kevin's life insurance? That's insane, Rachel. I know. I still can't believe they actually asked. But I'm worried they might not let it go. My father can be very stubborn when he thinks he deserves something. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Kevin talked to me about his financial planning, you know. He was very thorough, wanted to make sure Lily would be taken care of through college and beyond if anything happened to him. He would be furious about your parents trying to take that security away from her. I know, I said softly, the familiar ache of missing Kevin intensifying. I think I need to talk to Thomas about the legal situation, just to be prepared. That's a good idea, Marcus agreed. And Rachel? Don't let them manipulate you. Kevin protected you and Lily for a reason. The next day, I met with Thomas at his law office. He was sympathetic but not surprised by my parents' behavior. Unfortunately, I see this kind of thing more often than you'd think, he said, reviewing Kevin's will and insurance documents. But I can assure you, everything is airtight. Kevin designated you as the sole beneficiary of his life insurance and retirement accounts. Your parents have absolutely no legal claim to any of it. Could they contest the will? I asked, worried. Thomas shook his head. The will is clear and properly executed. And even if they tried, they have no grounds. Kevin was of sound mind, and parents have no automatic right to inherit from adult children, especially when there's a spouse and child. That reassurance should have made me feel better, but as I left Thomas's office, my phone buzzed with a string of text messages from my parents, and surprisingly, from Sophia. From my father, we need to discuss this situation like adults. Call me. From my mother, I raised you better than this, Rachel. Family comes first. From Sophia, you've always been selfish, but this is low even for you. Mom and Dad deserve better. The hypocrisy of Sophia, who had barely looked up from her phone during Kevin's funeral, accusing me of being selfish was almost laughable. Almost, if it weren't so painful. That evening, as Lily and I were eating dinner, my father called. When I didn't answer, he left a voicemail demanding a family meeting at their house on Sunday afternoon. This concerns all of us, Rachel. Be there at 2 o'clock. Bring Lily. I set the phone down, my appetite gone. Involving Lily in this ugly situation was the last thing I wanted, but maybe it was time to have everything out in the open, to make a final break if necessary. Was that Grandpa? Lily asked, pushing her peas around her plate. Yes, I admitted. He wants us to come over on Sunday. Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked, do we have to go? The fact that my daughter, who had once loved visiting her grandparents, now seemed reluctant spoke volumes. I think we should, I said carefully. Sometimes it's important to face difficult situations directly. She nodded, a look of determination crossing her face that reminded me painfully of Kevin. Okay. But can I bring something with me? I have an idea. What kind of idea? I asked, curious about her sudden intensity. Just something Daddy taught me about standing up for yourself, she said cryptically. Can I use the computer after dinner? I agreed, wondering what my 8-year-old was planning but trusting that whatever it was, it came from the good heart and strong values her father had helped instill in her. The days following my parents' visit were filled with conflicting emotions. Grief for Kevin remained a constant, heavy weight, but now it was complicated by anger and betrayal toward my family. In quiet moments when Lily was asleep, I found myself revisiting memories from childhood, seeing them in a new, harsh light. There were the dance recitals where my parents left early to make it to Sophia's softball games, but never the other way around. The Christmas when I received practical clothes while Sophia got the expensive art supplies we both had asked for. The way my academic achievements were expected while Sophia's C+ grades were celebrated as trying her best. Small inequities that seemed insignificant individually but formed a pattern when viewed collectively. Meanwhile, Lily had been unusually focused on some project she was working on in her room, hunched over her desk with colored pencils and paper. When I asked what she was doing, she just smiled secretively and said, something important for Sunday. On Saturday, I decided to review Kevin's financial documents more thoroughly, wanting to be fully informed before the confrontation with my family. Kevin had been meticulous about our finances, keeping everything organized in a home office filing cabinet. As I went through the folders, I found a sealed envelope with my name on it in Kevin's handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened it to find a letter dated just 3 months earlier, around the time of his last physical. My dearest Rachel, it began, if you're reading this, it means the doctor's concerns about my heart were more serious than I let on. I didn't want to worry you, but I've updated our will and insurance policies just in case. Everything goes to you, with provisions for Lily's education and future. Use it well, live fully, and know that my greatest joy was being your husband and Lily's father. I broke down sobbing, both devastated that he had kept his health concerns from me and deeply moved by his foresight and care. Kevin had known there was a risk and had prepared for it while trying to spare me the worry. It was so typically him, both frustrating and loving in equal measure. The letter continued with specific instructions about the insurance policies and investments, but also included a paragraph that caught my attention. I've set up a separate trust for Lily that can't be accessed until she's 25, except for education expenses. This is important, Rachel. Your father has approached me twice about investment opportunities that were thinly veiled requests for money. I declined politely, but he seemed to think my death would create an opportunity for him to access funds through you. Don't let that happen. Your parents have made poor financial choices for years, and while I sympathize, Lily's future cannot be compromised to bail them out. The revelation that my father had already tried to get money from Kevin while he was alive added another layer of betrayal. Kevin had protected me from this knowledge, probably trying to preserve my relationship with my parents. Even in this, he had put my feelings first. Armed with this new information, I called Thomas again to verify that the trust Kevin mentioned was indeed secure from any claims. He assured me it was ironclad and also suggested I bring a copy of Kevin's letter to the family meeting. It's not legally necessary, he explained, but it might be useful to have Kevin's explicit wishes documented if they tried to pressure you emotionally. Sunday morning arrived with a sense of impending confrontation. Lily was unusually quiet as we got dressed, but there was a determined set to her small shoulders that reminded me of Kevin before an important client meeting. Are you sure you want to come? I asked her one last time as we prepared to leave. You could stay with Ellen instead. She shook her head firmly. I need to be there, Mom. For Daddy. On the drive to my parents' house, Lily clutched a manila envelope to her chest, still refusing to tell me exactly what was inside. "It's a message from me and Daddy," was all she would say. As we pulled into the driveway of the suburban home where I'd grown up, I noticed several cars I recognized as belonging to my aunts and uncles. My parents had apparently invited an audience, perhaps thinking I would be less likely to refuse them in front of extended family. "Ready?" I asked Lily, my hand on the ignition. She nodded, her face solemn beyond her years. "I'm ready, Mom. Don't worry." We walked to the front door hand in hand, both of us drawing strength from the other. Before I could ring the bell, the door swung open to reveal my mother, dressed formally as if for church, her face set in a practiced expression of concern. "Rachel, Lily, come in. Everyone's waiting in the living room." We followed her through the familiar hallway into the large living room where I'd spent countless childhood Christmases and birthdays. Now it felt like walking into an ambush. My father sat in his recliner, positioned like a judge presiding over a court. Sophia was perched on the arm of the sofa, scrolling through her phone. Around the room sat my Aunt Rita, Uncle James, and my father's brother Terry with his wife Barbara. "Thank you for coming," my father said formally, as if this were a business meeting rather than a family gathering. "We have important matters to discuss." I remained standing, keeping Lily close to my side. "Before we start, I want to be clear that whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Lily. She has a right to know what's happening in her family." My mother frowned. "Rachel, this is hardly appropriate conversation for a child." "If it's not appropriate for her to hear, then it's not appropriate for you to be asking," I replied evenly. "This concerns her future too." My father cleared his throat. "Fine. We'll get right to the point. Your mother and I have been discussing the family financial situation. As you know, we helped you considerably throughout your life, from college tuition to the down payment on your first house." I bit back the retort that they had paid half as much for my education as they had for Sophia's art school, which she never completed. This wasn't the time for old grievances. "We believe," he continued, "that given the substantial windfall you've received from Kevin's passing, it's only fair that you assist the family in return. We're proposing a distribution that would secure our retirement and also provide some assistance to Sophia, who, as you know, has struggled financially as an artist." Sophia looked up from her phone long enough to give me a smug smile, as if my husband's death were some cosmic balancing of the scales between us. "I've prepared a breakdown of what we consider a fair distribution," my father said, passing me a printed document. "As you'll see, we're suggesting 50% of the life insurance proceeds be directed to your mother and me, with an additional 15% allocated to Sophia." I scanned the document, which detailed not just percentages but actual dollar amounts. They had somehow discovered the exact value of Kevin's life insurance policy, likely through my Uncle James, who worked in the insurance industry. "You want 65% of the money that's meant to secure my daughter's future after losing her father," I stated flatly. "Family takes care of family, Rachel," my mother interjected. "Your father and I are getting older. Our medical expenses are increasing, and you have to think about the bigger picture." "The bigger picture," I repeated. "Like how you couldn't be bothered to leave Sophia's birthday party when my husband died. That bigger picture." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My Aunt Rita shifted in her seat, looking embarrassed. At least someone had the decency to recognize how inappropriate this all was. "Now Rachel," my father said in his patronizing tone, "we've apologized for that unfortunate timing, but you have to understand we had guests from out of town. We couldn't just leave." "Actually, you could have," I replied. "You chose not to." "This isn't productive," Sophia cut in. "The point is, you're suddenly rich while the rest of us are struggling. Mom and Dad sacrificed for you your whole life. They deserve security in their old age." "And what about Lily's security?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Do you think Kevin died so that you could buy a new car or go on cruises? That money is for his daughter's future." My father stood up, his face reddening. "Now you listen here. We are your parents. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. You owe us respect and consideration." "Respect?" I laughed bitterly. "You haven't shown me or Lily an ounce of respect or genuine concern since Kevin died. All you care about is what you can get from us. That's not true, my mother protested weakly. We care about you, Rachel. We're just trying to be practical. Practical would be asking how your granddaughter is coping with losing her father. Practical would be offering to help with meals or housework or emotional support. Not this vulture behavior. The room fell silent again. My Uncle Terry looked uncomfortably at the floor while his wife Barbara glared at my father, clearly as appalled as I was. Into this tense silence, Lily suddenly stepped forward, still clutching her envelope. I have something to say, she announced in a clear, strong voice that startled everyone. My mother attempted a condescending smile. Sweetie, the adults are talking about important things right now. Lily stood her ground, channeling Kevin's quiet confidence. This is important too. It's about my daddy and what he would want. All eyes turned to her, this small figure standing so bravely in the center of adult conflict. Even Sophia put down her phone. Daddy taught me that when people show you who they really are, you should believe them, Lily said, her voice only slightly trembling. And when people only come around when they want something, they're not really family. She turned to face my parents directly. You didn't come to see us when Daddy died. You didn't help Mom when she was crying every night. You didn't ask me if I was okay or if I needed anything. You only came when you wanted money. The raw truth from an 8-year-old's mouth seemed to land differently than when I had said similar things. My mother's carefully composed face crumpled slightly, while my father seemed at a loss for words. Lily opened her envelope and pulled out a sheet of paper. I made something for you because I know that's why you really came to see us. She walked over and handed the paper to my father. It was a child's drawing, but as I glimpsed it over his shoulder, I saw it was designed to look like an invoice. At the top, in Lily's careful handwriting, it read bill for real love and support. Listed below were items like being there when Daddy died, $0. Helping Mom when she was sad, $0. Hugging me when I cried for Daddy, $0. Being real grandparents, priceless. At the bottom was a total, $0. That's why you came, right? For money? This is what you earned. The silence in the room was absolute. My father's hands trembled as he held the paper. My mother began to cry, whether from shame or manipulation, I couldn't tell. Sophia stared at Lily with an expression of shock, as if seeing her niece for the first time. I think we're done here, I said quietly, taking Lily's hand. Don't contact us again unless it's to apologize and show genuine change. Lily deserves better grandparents than you've been, and I deserve better parents. Before he could respond, another figure emerged from the main house. Scott, wait, that's wrong. I mean, before anyone could respond, my Aunt Barbara stood up. I think Lily has said everything that needed to be said, she announced, her voice cutting through the tension. Terry and I are leaving. This is shameful. As we walked out, leaving my stunned family behind, I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and liberation. We had lost more than Kevin. We had lost the illusion of a supportive extended family. But in that loss, there was also clarity and the freedom to rebuild our lives without toxic obligations. In the car, I hugged Lily tightly. That was incredibly brave. I'm so proud of you. She hugged me back. Daddy always said we have to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Was I right, Mom? Yes, baby, I assured her, tears streaming down my face. You were absolutely right. The weeks following the confrontation marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with both challenges and unexpected blessings. The initial aftermath was predictably difficult. My mother launched a brief, furious campaign of text messages, alternating between vicious accusations and tearful pleas. When those failed to move me, she resorted to social media, posting thinly veiled attacks about ungrateful children and family betrayal. I maintained my silence publicly, though each barb stung. My therapist reminded me daily that responding would only feed the drama. She wants a reaction, Dr. Michelle would say, holding me when the hurt became overwhelming. Don't give her the satisfaction. Meanwhile, Lily and I were learning to navigate our new normal. Some days were harder than others. There were still moments when grief would hit us like a physical blow, when I'd reach for the phone to call Kevin about something funny Lily had said, or when she'd set the table for 3 people out of habit. But there were also moments of unexpected joy. Without the constant stress of managing my parents' expectations and criticism, I found myself laughing more freely. Lily seemed lighter too, no longer walking on eggshells around grandparents who had never really seen her. Kevin's parents, Diana and Robert, stepped into the void left by my family's absence. They called regularly, sent care packages, and planned visits that were genuinely about spending time with Lily rather than asking for favors. The contrast was striking and healing. 3 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected letter from my mother. The subject line simply read truce. The message inside was brief. Rachel, I've spent 3 months being angry. It hasn't changed anything except making me more bitter. I miss my daughter and granddaughter. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. No lawyers, no demands. Just talk. Mom. I read it multiple times, searching for hidden manipulations but finding none. After discussing it with Dr. Michelle and Lily, I agreed to meet her at a neutral restaurant. She arrived looking older than I remembered but more composed than during our last encounter. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple blouse and slacks. Her expression when she saw me was guarded but not hostile. "Thank you for coming," she said, the exact words I'd been expecting. "How are you, Mom?" "Managing," she offered a small, tight smile. "Your father and I are taking some time apart. The rental is actually nice. Less to clean." This was news. "I'm sorry to hear that." She shrugged. "It's been coming for a while. Kevin used to say your father brought out the worst in me. I'm starting to think he was right about that too." The acknowledgement, however indirect, that Kevin had been right about anything related to our family dynamics was startling progress. "I've been seeing someone," she continued, eyes fixed on her water glass. "A therapist, I mean. Lily's idea, inspired by Lily's wisdom. It's helping me understand some things about myself, about why I've always felt so empty no matter how much I acquired." Our conversation that day wasn't a magical reconciliation. Years of dysfunctional patterns couldn't be undone in a single lunch. But it was a beginning. She asked thoughtful questions about my work, listened without interrupting when I explained the foundation I was starting in Kevin's memory, and looked genuinely pleased when I showed her pictures of Lily's latest school achievements. Before we parted, she said something that stayed with me. "Kevin would be proud of you, Rachel. Not because of what you've done with the money, but because of who you've become despite how hard I made it for you." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. The path toward family healing remains long and uncertain. Some days bring progress, others trigger old patterns and hurts. My mother and I maintain careful boundaries, but the open hostility has faded. She even attended Lily's school play last month, sitting quietly in the back during the performance but staying for cookies afterward. My father, unfortunately, chose a different path. He never apologized, never acknowledged his behavior. Last I heard, he was living with Sophia and her family, an arrangement that I'm told is straining everyone involved. Sometimes I feel sad about the relationship we'll never have, but mostly I feel free. Sophia eventually sent an email that, while stopping short of a full apology, acknowledged that the timing of their financial requests had been insensitive. It wasn't much, but it was the first time in our adult lives that she had conceded any wrongdoing. As for Lily and me, we've built a life that honors Kevin's memory while embracing our future. I've started dating again, carefully, slowly, with someone who understands that Lily and I are a package deal. His name is Marcus, not Kevin's brother, but a colleague who knew Kevin and respected him, and he brings his own wisdom about loss and healing. Lily thrives in ways that surprise me daily. She's become more confident, more willing to speak up for herself and others. Last week, she defended a classmate who was being bullied, using words that would have made Kevin beam with pride. "Real friends don't treat people that way." The money that caused so much family drama? Most of it remains untouched, growing in carefully managed accounts for Lily's future. We live modestly but comfortably, and I've used some of Kevin's life insurance to establish the foundation I mentioned, the Kevin Morgan Memorial Fund for Young Entrepreneurs. It provides small grants and mentorship to young people starting businesses, something Kevin had always wanted to do but never had the chance. Every year on the anniversary of Kevin's death, Lily and I do something special to remember him. This year, we planted a tree in the park where he used to take her to feed ducks. As we patted soil around the small sapling, Lily looked up at me with those blue eyes so much like her father's. "Mommy, do you think Daddy knows about the invoice I gave Grandma and Grandpa?" I smiled, feeling Kevin's presence as strongly as if he were standing beside us. "I think Daddy knows everything, sweetheart. And I think he's very proud of how brave you were." "I learned it from you," she said simply. "You taught me that we don't have to accept being treated badly, even from family." As we walked home that evening, hand in hand, I reflected on the journey we'd traveled. The grief would always be part of us. Love that deep doesn't just disappear. But alongside the sadness, we'd found something powerful. The knowledge that we could stand up for ourselves, that we deserved better, and that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked one more question. "Mommy, if someone you love dies, and other people try to take advantage of that, what's the best way to handle it?" I thought about her question carefully. "I think, baby, you show them exactly what real love looks like, and what it doesn't. Just like you did with your invoice." She nodded solemnly. "Good. Because someday I want to tell my kids about how Daddy taught us to be strong, and how we taught some grown-ups what family really means." As I turned off her light and headed to my own room, I realized that Lily was right. This hadn't been about revenge, really. It had been about teaching, showing people who had forgotten what love looks like when it's genuine versus when it's conditional and selfish. Kevin's greatest gift to us wasn't the financial security he'd left behind. It was the foundation of values he'd helped build in our daughter, values strong enough to withstand grief, manipulation, and family betrayal. Values that would guide her long after the pain of losing him had softened into sweet memory. And perhaps most importantly, he'd given us the courage to recognize our own worth, not as sources of financial support or emotional labor for others, but as human beings deserving of unconditional love and respect. That 8-year-old girl who stood up to adults demanding money they hadn't earned? She was Kevin's daughter through and through. And she was teaching all of us what real family looks like. If you've experienced similar family betrayal after loss, or if you've ever had to stand up to toxic relatives who saw your tragedy as their opportunity, please share your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your strength might inspire someone else who needs to hear that it's okay to demand better. Subscribe for more real stories about family, loss, resilience, and the courage to choose yourself when others won't choose you. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give our children isn't money, it's the example of what self-respect looks like. Thank you for listening to our story. And remember, real love doesn't have a price tag, but it's worth everything.